Hello everybody, my name is Suzie Carpenter and I'm really jazzed up to be here today to talk to you about the bright side and really the lessons about finding the miracles and the magic in the mess. That is what this is all about, and I believe that right now, during the period of time that we are in, November 2020, this talk may be more relatable than any other talk I've ever given. So that is my hope, that is my intention, and certainly that is something that I feel we all can understand because of what has been going on the past year. So I really want to just show up and offer you some tips, some insights, and hopefully some things that you can walk away with and go, oh, aha, yeah, I get that. Or, oh yeah, maybe I can shift this in my life and feel a little bit more relaxed, a little bit more present, a little bit more compassionate. So I'm going to take some topics and just dive in a little bit and see where we go. There is really a lot to talk about, and I don't want to dwell too much on autism, which has been the crux and the catalyst for our journey. And I really want to talk about the dynamics and the outcomes and the things that happened and the lessons that we learned. A lot of these lessons are universal lessons. Lessons that we've all experienced through the uncontrollable events of the past year. So many dynamics. So really when we think about, there's so many miracles and there's so much magic in the mess, but when we're stuck in the mess, it can be really difficult to find the light. The light at the end of the tunnel, the light of God, the light that leads us and brightens us and sparks the insight, the passion, compassion, all those things that we need to move through, trudge through the mud, the mess. So our journey really began with autism because autism, as I said, was the catalyst in terms of shifting and changing how we lived, how we spoke, what we ate, how we related to other people, who we spent time with, what our priorities were. It shifted everything. So yes, I would not be doing our story justice if I didn't acknowledge that. And I would say the biggest lesson that impacted me as a mother through the journey of autism was my intuition. Listening to my intuition, trusting my intuition, and really allowing that voice of my soul, of spirit, to be louder, be clearer, be stronger, and for me to honor that above all else. So there's a process that we go through in order to be able to trust and hear and listen and really decipher. Kelly and I talk about this a lot, actually. It's very, very interesting to be able to decipher what is intuition and what is just maybe a desire or a drive or even a fear. Because our fear can drive us to think, oh, you should do this. Oh, you should have that cookie because you deserve it. Oh, you should, go buy that pocketbook because you deserve it. Or, it can drive us from a place of guilt. And we can feel like, oh, I should go do this, right? So that is the key to intuition, is to really get present with yourself, with your situation, with your intention. Intention is really big. And figure out what is really happening and what is really being asked of me. What is really supposed to unfold, evolve, and come out of this situation that for us with autism was an incredibly challenging, difficult, unexpected, unknown situation. And for all of us this year, it's the same thing. Who knew we would be experiencing this pandemic, and not only this pandemic, but for so long with no near end in sight, and also in the midst of all the political drama that's going on as well. So there is so much to talk about around intuition, letting go, and becoming more present so that we can really understand what we need to do to learn, to grow, to be more free, and to really come to a place of that, presence is really that. A couple of key strategies and lessons that I love to share, one of my favorite lines that I like to use with Kelly, my daughter Kelly, who is the youngest of our 2 children. She is now 24 years old, was diagnosed on the autism spectrum at the age of 4 in the year 2000. I love to use this line with her and with my clients. I'm no longer currently seeing clients because my full-time job is now with Savor Street, which maybe I'll get to a little bit later. But the point is, I've been on this journey that started with Kelly of learning to understand mind, body, spirit. How that's impacted by what we put in our body, our thoughts, our outlook, our thoughts, and what we allow in to our sphere, our energy sphere of those thoughts, of those beliefs, of those things that we examine and think about and evaluate and go, oh, wow, oh, okay, is she really thinking this about me? Or did that just really happen? So there's this process that we go through, and it's really powerful to understand this concept, and this is the line that I use. There's no such thing as pressure, only presence. I'm going to write that down for you. I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but there is no such thing as pressure. Can you see that? Okay, you can zoom in if you can. Only there is only, big letters here, presence. With a big heart, okay? So there is no such thing as presence. No such thing as pressure. Only presence. Whenever you feel a sense of pressure coming upon you, and these days this has been a pretty constant thing for us. Whenever you feel a sense of pressure, whether it's I have to do something, I need to show up, she needs help and I'm supposed to be over here doing something else, I have to go to the grocery store, I don't really want to deal with the people at the grocery store, whatever the source is of the pressure, allow yourself to get back into your own little sphere and be present. Be present with who you are, with what you know, with what you believe. And I'm creating this tunnel because that's what it is. It's like a siphon of what we allow in and also what we allow out. So really acknowledging that you can be present. This is the biggest lesson of all for me with autism. It taught me this more than anything else. If there was 2 words that I could use to sum up our journey with autism, it is letting go. And through the process of letting go is learning how to be present, learning how to trust, trust that source within, the spirit within, and that is where our intuition comes from. That is what true intuition is that inner knowing that comes from source, that comes from spirit. So I also have written down here for you. Now remember that whenever you feel a sense of pressure, go back to this mantra. This is a mantra for you to take with you. This is my intention for today, is to give you some mantras and some tips and tools you can use to deal with anxiety and fear and overwhelm that comes from uncontrollable circumstances or just even day in and day out stress, okay? So there's no such thing as pressure, only presence. That's your mantra, okay? That's the first key thing. Now the second thing I'm talking about that ties together with it is the intuition piece. And so intuition, I have written here, intuition is the key to seeing beyond. So when we're able to tap into that inner knowing, that is that source information that's connected to source, connected to spirit, connecting to the greater good, that is when we will, if and when we can make decisions from that place, that is when we will feel ourselves free from that pressure, free from expectations, free from attachment, free from judgment. All of that comes from the ability to let go. It's a process. Absolutely, it's a process. But it is the most empowering thing you could ever do, and it's never too late to do it. Anytime in your life, no matter what is happening, this process will empower you to become more enlightened, more empowered, and more one with your soul, with spirit, all of that. So I know I'm going deep here, and for those of you that may want to know more about how we got to this place in terms of healing and our journey, I would love to dig into that a little bit as well. But at the end of the day, it's about the food, but it's not about the food. So yes, a huge part of me being able to access my intuition and to be open to learning all of these lessons and to receiving all of these lessons and then taking them out into the world and saying, hey, look at this. I think this is really powerful. I think this can unite us. I think this can free us. I think this can help us grow in love and compassion, is really a huge part of the journey, is healing. You know, for me, it was a huge part of the journey, and as it was for Kelly. So I'm just going to touch on that for a moment here, and then I'm going to get back to the tips that I have for you. And so the reason why is because when we're in a place of feeling jazzed up, you know, anxious, scared, nervous, overwhelmed, even sad on the flip side, like really sad, unmotivated, like we can't move. We don't know what to do. We're frozen. You know, there's a lot of responses to those emotions that come from a place of good intentions of wanting to really feel more connected and feel, you know, find the answers. Like we want to find the answers. We want to feel better. We want to help other people. It's all good intentions. But sometimes what we do is we turn to things that help us to feel numb in the moment, to escape, to feel like, okay, I don't have to deal with this, right? And that was a huge thing for me with autism, because and even before autism, I used sugar to numb out. I used sugar to escape. Sugar was my go-to reward, my go-to indulgence, you know, my go-to thing. And so what I learned through the process, becoming a parent of a child with autism, is such a daily grind of unpredictable events, you know, behaviors, screaming, yelling, tantruming, that other people judge and think you're a bad parent or think they're a brat. It also involves lack of sleep, because typically kids with autism, even adults with autism, don't sleep well. They have insomnia, or they have just their biological clock is off. Sometimes they don't sleep for days. It's crazy. So you have that. And then you have digestive issues. To this day, 2020, the facts around this is that almost 90% of people, children or adults with autism, have GI issues. 90%. Okay, what we're talking about is the gut-brain connection. Why is this important? It's important because it affects all of us. This isn't just about autism. The gut-brain connection is something we can all learn more about and respect more and honor more and get curious about, okay? Again, like the other things I've been talking about, it's a process. The intention here is to inspire and empower. So again, it's never too late. You can experiment with different things at any point in your life. So that connection, the gut-brain connection, in Chinese medicine, actually they talk about the gut-spirit connection and the gut-intuitive connection. So the cleaner, the healthier, the more vibrant, think of it like a garden. If your garden is flourishing with beautiful colored flowers and vegetables, and it's just, you know, flourishing, it's just very prolific. So when you have that, you're in a space of a good healthy gut. When the weeds start to come in, it gets a little too dry, there's not enough moisture, there's not enough sunlight, the garden can't grow. It's the same kind of concept. I'm not going to get into that. I just want to introduce that as a concept, because it is a huge component of our journey, and many people out there. You will see people everywhere now talking about this. When I first started learning this back in 2000, guys, 20 years ago, nobody was talking about it. People would say, what's the gut? They didn't even know the gut was here, was your belly. You know, that it involved all of the bacteria and the villi and all of the things that make us enzymes be able to digest our food in such a way that we can assimilate nutrients. When that's not working right, we have acid reflux, we get colon cancer, we have, ulcers, all of these kinds of things. So there's that. And then the other side of it is the mind-body connection, what we think and how we impact that with our thoughts, our feelings, and our beliefs. So in my work, it's been so paramount to address both. Some people can have a test that tells them what foods they're intolerant or allergic to and not be able to follow through, not be able to stop eating the banana, the raspberries, the chili peppers, the dairy. It can be anything. A certain kind of fish, like for me it was pecans and sea bass and turkey and chicken. So whatever, and for Kelly there was 28 things. If I didn't have that information, I wouldn't have been able to heal her, honestly, because she would have kept the vicious cycle of going. Citrus, another one. She loved orange juice. She would have kept drinking orange juice, and it would have kept that vicious cycle going with her tantruming, with her, eloping from tasks, not being able to focus, all of these things. So that information is super duper important. The other component, though, is as her parent, I didn't want to be the food police. I had to be for a while until we got things down. But eventually she needed to tune in and feel it herself. She needed to tune in and go, oh my gosh, you're right, Mom. I don't feel good when I eat that. She's now 24 and she's self-regulating for the most part. We talk about it all the time. But she is self-regulating and she's going to the store, she's buying her food, and she's not eating the things that she's not supposed to eat. Does she eat a little bit too much sugar sometimes, or maybe a little too many potato chips? Yes. But those things are gluten-free, dairy-free, and they follow, her kind of guardrails of what she should be eating. So there's no perfect here, it's kind of that 80-20 rule. But with celiac disease, you do need to be 100% off of gluten, and Kelly does have celiac disease. So it's about the I can, it's about discovering what you can do, what you can eat, and feeling the freedom that comes from that. Instead of feeling like, oh, I can't, and she gets to have that, and I can't have that. That's been our journey with everything. So, and this is, again, ties back to COVID, because when circumstances get uncomfortable or exhausting or yucky and hard, we can just want to crawl into a hole with a pint of ice cream and just disappear. And at the end of the day or the week or the year, that process, cycle that repeats itself, we lose time. We lose time, and we lose the insight that we need to be where we want to go. So really and truly, this process is about learning to tune in and honor that information, that intuition. So the intuition is the theme that just keeps weaving its way back into this conversation. Another key component of our journey, and again, there's no judgment here on what anybody else does. Our journey is ours, and your journey is yours. But for me, with my intuition, what was happening was, well, first of all, I'll just say one thing about this before I get into it too, because sometimes it's been so long that I jump to all the exciting things and forget to talk about the mess. And sometimes you have to hear the mess. Kelly hates when I talk about the mess because it was so hard. But you have to hear the mess to appreciate the miracle, right? So we were going to speech therapy 5 times a week, individual and group, and we were going to occupational therapy 3 times a week, and we had 28 hours of behavior therapy in our home. So a lot of imposition on our life, things that were to help with behaviors and sensory issues and all of these things. Then introduce the diet, right? It was incredibly overwhelming. It was a full-time job and then some. So, but what I really wanted to say was that the biggest part of that journey was first of all healing the gut-brain connection, and then teaching Kelly how to tune in and honor her spirit, and I had to model that. I had to really be confident in that, and actually trust in that. And a huge part of that is trusting God and trusting his plan for her. And so there's this component of letting go that sounds like you're giving up, that sounds like you're being complacent, but it's really not that at all. What it really is a form of surrender, of saying, I'm okay with this because I believe in something better. I'm okay with this because I know, with my heart, I know and I believe that I'm in God's hands and that all is well. All is well. And you repeat that to yourself over and over again. All is well. So that is really the key to letting go and then trusting and tuning in, which I'm going to show you in a second. So it's a 3-step process. So in the journey, there was the food component, and that took from 2000. So she was diagnosed with autism in 2000. In 2002, we discovered she had celiac and a bunch of food intolerances. In 2005, after many different experiences with the gluten-free diet and whatnot, and different testing and trying different doctors, we discovered a doctor recommended that she go on a diet called the specific carbohydrate diet. It's like being in prison. I mean, not that I would know what that feels like, but very, very, very restrictive, very limited, and you have to be 100% in order to heal. And the goal of the diet is to heal the gut. So what happened was, during that process, I was out of my mind, and I went to my therapist and just said, I don't know what to do. I'm just going crazy. And she said, actually, sorry, I went to my therapist, and then I also went to Kelly's psychiatrist, who had diagnosed her with the autism. And she said, why don't you try Prozac, or whatever she recommended at the time. I'm pretty sure it was Prozac. And she gave me a prescription. And I walked away feeling like, oh, thank God. All of the other moms that I knew that I saw in speech therapy and occupational therapy in the waiting rooms or wherever, in the support groups, were talking about the different medications their kids were on, how they were helping. And I almost felt like it was bad that I wasn't giving Kelly any medication. I was approaching it from this holistic standpoint, like maybe I was missing out on something. So I went home with that piece of paper, a little square white piece of paper from the doctor, and I did not go to the pharmacy. Instead, I filed it in my file drawer, and I never filled it. Kelly has never been on any drugs for mental health, or otherwise, really, beyond treatment for pneumonia with antibiotics or strep throat. So my point is, that little voice in my head, that intuition, kept saying, don't do it. Don't give it to her. Now, again, back to what I was saying earlier, how do you decipher that? Is it guilt? Is it fear? Is it really intuition? At the time, I didn't know. But something kept telling me to listen. Something kept telling me, don't do it, and listen to that voice. So when you get really quiet, when you allow yourself to be, that is when you will get those messages, and you'll just know that they are spirit, that they're intuition, and that you are being guided. So, intuition is the key to seeing beyond. Here's the 3-step process, okay? Starts with compassion. Incredible compassion for a child as a parent who is suffering horribly and who is creating suffering for her parents, her sibling, and people in her school. She's in preschool. Compassion. Compassion has many layers here. So compassion can be as simple, of course, as smiling at somebody, letting them pass you, go in front of you in line, or any of those kinds of nice things that we do. But compassion also has more layers in terms of our perception of situations and being able to really kind of say, okay, there's no ego here. I just really want to lean into the truth of this situation and this person over here and what their intentions are and what their gifts are and what they're meant to do and how I'm supposed to interact with them and why are we here together right now. So compassion involves many layers, but that is where we start, because when we find compassion is when the doors open, the windows open, the breeze comes in, the sunlight comes in, and we're like, oh, okay. And we can relax a little bit more into the situation. So compassion can be for self, compassion can be for others, compassion can be for the environment, the circumstances, and this is really, again, many layers deep. So compassion for self, compassion for others. So compassion for self is being able to say, I choose to help her, because at the end of the day, the week, the year, my life, I'm going to go to my grave knowing that I did what I believed was best for my child that I brought into this world, even though she's God's child. I'm her caregiver, I'm her soul keeper. So I need to make sure I do what is best for her, and keeping in mind compassion for self as well means taking care of myself in the process, and that was a hard lesson to learn. So there's that. But that process allows us to let go, because then we're able to let go of expectations. Oh, she should be learning multiplication right now. She's in 2nd grade, for God's sakes. Well, guess what? There is no teaching this child multiplication, so let it go. Let it go. She doesn't need multiplication. That's what calculators are for, right? But when you're in 2nd grade and you're in a classroom and there's a teacher and you can't do it, it's terrible. It's terrible. So let go of expectations. Oh, my parents think she's a brat. Oh, the person at the grocery store just yelled at me because my kid broke the jar, whatever. Letting go of those expectations that we put on ourselves, that we put on our children, that we put on others, really is a huge part of this process. And it's letting go of judgment around those circumstances and coming back to that place of being present. Like I said before, there is no such thing as pressure, just presence. When we can be fully present is when we can see God's light, when we can feel that love. And that's where we want to move from, act from, choose from, the place of love, getting into our hearts and out of our heads, okay? And once we let go, we're able to tune in like I'm just describing to you right now. And when we can tune in, that's when we get these powerful messages where we feel empowered by those messages and we feel at peace. And then we know that we're on the right track. So this is all a lot, and I could go on and on, but I'm going to stop myself here because I think watching something virtually is probably harder than being in person. And I appreciate you so much for being here with me and listening to our story. My book, On the Bright Side, is available on Amazon in case you're interested in reading more about the story. You just Google On the Bright Side Suzie Carpenter and you will find it. My Instagram hangout is at @Suzie Carpenter Health. I've had that for a while, but I go on there and do some live videos around cooking. I share recipes all the time. My website's kind of down right now. If you go, it's been down for a year. If you go on there, you'll actually see a picture, I think, of a church event that we had a year or 2 years ago. I don't even know now. So it's been a while since I've been able to actively blog there, but you can still use that website, the search function, type in chicken, turkey, eggplant, cashews, sunflower seeds, granola, and the recipes will come up. So if you're looking for more food tips and ideas, there's a lot of information on my website. Feel free to reach out. You can reach me at Suzie Carpenter at me.com. I'm happy to talk to you in any way that might be helpful for you or your family or your friends. This is about this process of giving and caring and sharing and finding the love and the light. And that's what we're all here to do. So it's been a real honor and pleasure to be with you today. Again, thank you for your time, and please let me know what I can do to help.